My sister-in-law laughed in my face and said the house was hers now because she married my brother. The whole family nodded like it was true. But then the lawyer opened his folder, cleared his throat, and called my name first. And that's when everything shifted. Truth is, I knew this day was coming the second Dad passed, but I didn't think it would feel like this. Like being shoved into a spotlight I never wanted. We were all crammed into the living room of the old house, the one with the wood-paneled walls and the smell of cedar that never really left, no matter how many candles Mom lit. It was a Sunday afternoon, just after church, and the air was thick with that Texas heat, the kind that makes the back of your neck sweat even with the fan running overhead. My brother David sat on the couch beside his wife, Angela. She was dressed like she was going to court. Navy dress, pearls, hair pulled back so tight it looked painful. She had this smug smile that never wavered, like she'd already won, and maybe she thought she had. "It's ours," she announced, voice sharp as glass. "This house belongs to me and David now. We've been living here, we've been paying the bills, we've been taking care of Mom." She looked straight at me when she said that, daring me to argue. My jaw tightened. I wanted to remind her that I'd been the one mowing the lawn when Dad got sick, that I'd spent nights fixing the leaky roof with my own hands while she was out posting pictures of herself drinking mimosas at brunch. But no one wanted to hear my side. They never did. Uncle Rick cleared his throat, muttered something about fair's fair, and a couple cousins nodded along. And in that moment, I felt invisible in my own family's house. You ever feel like the whole room's been scripted against you? Like every nod, every whisper is part of a play you didn't audition for? That's what it felt like. Angela kept talking, waving her manicured hand toward the fireplace where Dad's picture still sat. "This is symbolic, you know. This house represents stability, family, legacy, and now it's ours to carry forward." She squeezed David's arm like she'd just crowned him king. He didn't even look at me. He just kept staring at the floor, like maybe deep down he knew this wasn't right, but didn't have the guts to stop her. Then Mr. Callahan, yeah, the same old lawyer with the bolo tie who'd been handling Dad's affairs for decades, cleared his throat. That sound cut through Angela's monologue like a chainsaw. He adjusted his glasses, shuffled a stack of papers, and said, "Actually, before we go any further, I need to address something." The room stilled. Angela leaned back, smile still plastered, like she was humoring him. And then he said my name, out loud, clear, firm. For a second I thought I misheard. But then he looked straight at me, his pale blue eyes sharp, and motioned for me to come forward. My stomach dropped. The cousins shifted in their seats. Whispers rippled through the room. Angela's smile faltered for just a fraction of a second before she forced it back. My legs felt heavy as I stood, the hardwood creaking under my boots. My palms were sweaty, and all I could hear was the ticking of the old grandfather clock in the hallway. 3:47 p.m. That moment is burned into my brain like a brand. Mr. Callahan opened his folder and pulled out a single envelope, cream-colored. My name scrawled across the front in Dad's shaky handwriting. My heart stuttered. I swear I could still smell Dad's aftershave on the paper, that pine scent he wore every Sunday without fail. I reached for it, but my hands shook so badly I had to grip the edge of the envelope with both fingers. Angela scoffed, loud enough for everyone to hear. "What's that?" "A letter saying thanks for helping out. Maybe a grocery list." A few people chuckled nervously, but Mr. Callahan didn't crack a smile. "This is part of the official reading of the will," he said firmly. The words hung in the air. My brother finally lifted his head, eyes wide like he was seeing me for the first time all afternoon. I swallowed hard, my throat dry, and slid my finger under the flap of the envelope. The paper tore with a sound louder than it should have been, like the whole room was holding its breath. And inside, well, let's just say it wasn't what anyone expected. I unfolded the letter slowly, the paper soft and worn at the edges like it had been touched 100 times before. Dad's handwriting stumbled across the page, shaky from the illness that had been eating at him those last months. My eyes scanned the first line and my throat tightened. "Son, if you're reading this, it means I trusted you with more than words can explain." My hands trembled. I could feel everyone's eyes burning into me, waiting for me to say something, but I kept reading in silence. The next line made my chest ache. "I know I never showed it the way I should have, but you were always the one I could rely on. Not David, not Angela, not anyone else. You." I froze. It was like he'd read my whole life, all those nights I sat wondering if he even saw me, and now here it was, in ink. Angela rolled her eyes dramatically. "Oh, please don't act like it's some grand revelation. He gave us the house. That's what matters." Her voice dripped with sarcasm, but I noticed her hand tightening around David's arm, her nails digging into his sleeve. Maybe she wasn't as confident as she looked. My mind drifted back years, to when Angela first came around. She was always loud, always making decisions for David, for everyone. I remember one Thanksgiving, maybe 10 years ago, she rearranged Mom's entire kitchen without asking, then laughed when Mom cried about not finding her old casserole dish. "I'm just modernizing," she said, like our history was clutter. Dad's jaw clenched that night, but he never said a word. He hated conflict. That was his flaw. Silence. And now his silence had left me holding a letter that threatened to blow everything wide open. I kept reading. The house is just a symbol, walls and windows. I gave it to David because it would keep him and Angela quiet. But the truth? The responsibility? That belongs to you. My pulse pounded. Responsibility? What did that even mean? My hands started sweating, and I nearly dropped the page. I glanced up, saw David staring at me, his face pale, lips pressed so tight they'd lost all color. He didn't look angry, not yet, more like scared. And that rattled me more than Angela's smug grin. My mind flipped back again to the summer of 2015, when Dad had me fix the old fence line out by the back pasture. It was 103 degrees, sweat soaking through my shirt, mosquitoes buzzing like crazy. David was inside with Angela, arguing over which granite countertop to pick for their dream kitchen. Dad stood with me, handing me nails, and out of nowhere he said, "You've got the patience, son. Patience wins longer than pride." I didn't get it then. But now, holding this letter, his words echoed like thunder. I scanned to the bottom of the page, and that's when I saw it. A small line scribbled almost like an afterthought. "The key is in the desk drawer. It opens what truly matters. Keep it safe." My stomach flipped. "Key? Desk drawer?" I folded the letter quickly before anyone else could see. Angela leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "What is it? What's he saying? Read it out loud." Her voice cracked on the last word just a little, and that's when I knew she was scared too. I shook my head. "No," I said quietly but firmly. The room went still. Marking my refusal, Angela's face went red, her perfect smile breaking for the first time all day. She slammed her palm on the table, rattling the glasses. "You don't get to keep secrets. Not in this family." And in that moment I realized that's all she'd ever wanted. Control. Over David, over the house, over the story. And Dad, for once, had slipped out of her grip. I tucked the letter into my pocket, heart hammering so hard it hurt, and stood up from the table. The grandfather clock ticked to 4:22 p.m. My boots creaked against the wood floor as I walked out, the weight of the letter heavy against my chest. Behind me, voices erupted, Angela shouting, cousins whispering, Mom calling my name. But I didn't turn back, because I knew what I had to do next. Find that desk, find that key, and find out why Dad had trusted me, and only me, to uncover what came after. I didn't wait until the room calmed down. I walked straight down the hallway, my boots hitting the hardwood like drum beats, and headed for Dad's old study. The door creaked open, releasing that familiar smell of tobacco and old leather. Dust floated in the sunlight, cutting through half-open blinds, illuminating stacks of books, faded photos of rodeos, and the oak desk that had been his command center for decades. My heart hammered as I stepped closer. The desk drawer stuck like it always did, but with a tug, it slid open, and there it was, a small brass key wrapped in a piece of cloth. My throat went dry. The cloth smelled faintly of Dad's aftershave, that piney scent he wore to church every Sunday. I picked it up, hands trembling, and just stared. This was it. This was what he meant. Behind me I heard footsteps, Angela's heels sharp and fast. Her voice followed, dripping with venom. "You think you're special because he scribbled your name on a letter? Don't kid yourself. That house is ours. You don't belong here." I turned, clutching the key in my palm so tight it left ridges in my skin. She stood in the doorway, arms crossed, pearls glinting under the weak light. David hovered behind her, silent, eyes darting from me to the drawer like he already knew what I'd found. Truth is, I wanted to scream, to throw the key in her face and tell her she couldn't erase me, but I didn't. Instead, I slipped it into my pocket, the metal cool against my thigh, and said, "Funny, Dad didn't think so." Her face twisted, red creeping up her neck. She stepped forward, heels clicking on the floor, and hissed, "You've always been jealous, always the little brother trying to catch up. This changes nothing." My chest tightened, anger rising hot, but before I could speak, Mr. Callahan appeared at the end of the hall, his bolo tie glinting. "Actually," he said, his voice calm but firm, "it changes quite a lot. That key was left intentionally. It holds value. Legal value." The words sliced through the tension. Angela froze. David shifted uncomfortably, rubbing the back of his neck. My heart thudded so hard I thought it might break through my ribs. "Legal value?" Angela spat, but her voice cracked slightly. "What the hell does that mean?" Mr. Callahan adjusted his glasses, his eyes flicking to me. "It means your father had more assets than you realize. And it means this isn't finished." The hallway went silent except for the old grandfather clock chiming 4:45. I swear I could feel the whole house holding its breath. Angela recovered quickly, forcing that smile back on her face. "So what? He left my husband the house. That's all that matters." She grabbed David's arm, squeezing it like she could will him to back her up. "But David—" He just stood there staring at me, his mouth slightly open. For the first time I saw doubt in his eyes, and that scared her more than anything. I brushed past them, heading for the front door, my boots heavy, my pulse pounding in my ears. Angela shouted after me, "You'll regret this."
That key won't save you.
But I didn't look back. Outside, the air was cooler, carrying the smell of cut grass and diesel from a passing truck. I climbed into the Silverado, the seat cracked and worn. The dashboard clock still stuck at 9:13. I sat there gripping the steering wheel, breathing hard, the brass key burning in my pocket. My mind raced. What did it open? A safe? A lockbox at the bank? Something hidden on the property? The possibilities churned in my head like a storm. I thought back to the times Dad would disappear for hours, saying he had errands. I remembered the barn at the edge of the property, the one he always kept locked, telling everyone it was just full of junk. My stomach tightened. Maybe that's what the key was for. Maybe that's why he left it to me. My phone buzzed in my pocket, snapping me out of the spiral. A text from Mom. "Come home tonight. We need to talk. Alone." My hands went clammy. Alone. She knew something. Maybe she'd been keeping it in for years. Maybe she'd been waiting for this exact moment. I started the engine, the truck rattling to life, and pulled onto the dirt road leading away from the house. The sun was low, casting long shadows across the fields, the cicadas buzzing in the distance. My chest felt heavy with more than just anger. It was fear. Fear that what I was about to uncover would tear us apart forever. And maybe fear that Dad had trusted me with something I wasn't ready to carry. The brass key dug into my thigh as the truck bounced along the road, and I knew one thing for certain. This wasn't just about a house anymore. That night I drove back into town, headlights cutting through the dark as the cicadas sang their endless song. Mom's house sat quiet on Elm Street, the porch light glowing soft yellow like it always had when Dad was alive. I parked the Silverado out front, engine ticking as it cooled, and for a moment I just sat there staring at the screen door. My chest felt heavy, the brass key digging into my pocket like it was burning a hole straight through me. Finally I forced myself out, boots crunching on the gravel, and knocked. The door creaked open before I even finished. Mom was waiting. She looked smaller somehow, wrapped in her old cardigan, eyes swollen like she'd been crying all day. "Come in," she whispered, voice trembling. Inside smelled like coffee and lavender, the same way it had since I was a kid. The grandfather clock in the corner ticked steadily toward 9:15 p.m. Mom motioned for me to sit at the kitchen table, the one with the worn edge where I carved my initials when I was 10. She poured 2 mugs of coffee, hands shaking so badly she spilled a little on the saucer. "I suppose you found it," she said softly, eyes flicking toward my pocket. My stomach tightened. "The key?" I asked. She nodded, lips pressed thin. "Your father? He told me you'd be the one to get it. He made me promise not to say anything. Not to David, not to Angela. Only you." My pulse quickened. "Why me?" Mom looked away, tears pooling. "Because you were the only one who listened. The only one who cared about more than appearances." Her voice cracked. "He loved you, son. He just didn't know how to show it." I clenched my jaw, fighting the sting behind my eyes. "He had a strange way of proving it," I muttered, thinking about all the years I felt invisible, second place to David. Mom reached across the table, her hand warm but frail, gripping mine tight. "He wanted to protect you. That's what the key is for." My chest tightened. "Protect me from what?" She hesitated, glancing toward the window like someone might be listening. "From your brother."
From Angela.
"From the greed they don't even see in themselves." My hand shook as I pulled the key out, setting it on the table between us. The brass gleamed under the overhead light. "What does it open?" Mom's eyes watered. "The barn, out on the east pasture. There's a safe inside. He showed me once years ago, after his first heart scare. Deeds, contracts, money. More than the house, more than anything David knows about." My heart pounded. "Why not just put it in the will?" Mom's lips trembled. "Because he knew Angela would find a way to twist it. She's smart and not in a good way. He thought hiding it, leaving it only to you, was the safest path." I sat back, mind spinning. The air smelled like black coffee and the faint must of old wallpaper. Outside, a dog barked in the distance. I rubbed my temples. So what now? If I open it, if I take what's inside, David will come after me. Angela will never let it go. Mom's grip tightened. "That's why he chose you. Because you're strong enough. And because you'd use it wisely." Her words landed heavy like a weight on my shoulders. I didn't feel strong. I felt scared, cornered. But deep down, I knew she was right. Dad had been planning this for years, and somehow he'd seen me as the one who could carry it. The thought both humbled and terrified me. Mom let go of my hand, wiping her eyes with a tissue. "Don't wait too long," she whispered. "The longer you hide it, the worse it will be." I slipped the key back into my pocket, the metal cold against my thigh, and stood. The clock chimed 9:30. "I'll go tomorrow," I said quietly, though I wasn't sure if I was promising her or myself. As I walked out into the cool night air, stars scattered across the sky like 1,000 tiny witnesses, I realized there was no turning back. The barn waited, the truth waited, and so did the storm I knew was coming once David and Angela found out what I was about to uncover. The next morning the sun rose hot and bright, burning away the thin layer of fog that hung over the pastures. I drove out to the east side of the property, the Silverado rattling over the dirt road, dust trailing behind me. My chest was tight the whole way, the brass key heavy in my pocket like a secret I could barely carry. The barn stood just where I remembered, weathered red paint peeling, the tin roof sagging a little at the corners. Dad always kept it locked, told everyone it was just old tools and junk. But as I slid the key into the padlock and felt it click open, I realized that was just another one of his half-truths. The door groaned wide and the smell hit me. Dust, oil, a faint trace of hay. Light streamed through gaps in the wood slats, cutting stripes across the dirt floor. In the corner, half hidden under a tarp, was a steel safe about waist-high. My palms went slick instantly. I pulled the tarp back, coughing as dust swirled, and knelt. The key slid in smooth, like it had been waiting for me. With a twist, the lock released, and the heavy door creaked open. Inside were stacks of folders, envelopes, a bundle of deeds tied together with twine. My breath caught when I saw the numbers. Land deeds across 3 counties, oil rights signed decades ago, bank accounts with balances that made my head spin. My father hadn't just left behind a house. He'd built an empire in secret, and he'd left it to me. My knees went weak. I sat back on the dirt floor, the papers trembling in my hands. "Why me?" I whispered out loud, though I already knew the answer. Because I was the one who stayed, who worked, who listened. Not David, not Angela, me. A truck door slammed outside and my blood went cold. Voices carried through the barn walls. Angela's sharp, cutting tone and David's deeper one. "He's in there," she snapped. "I told you he'd sneak around." My stomach knotted. I scrambled to gather the papers back into the safe, but before I could shut it fully, the barn door banged open. Angela stormed in, David trailing behind, eyes wide. Her heels sank into the dirt as she pointed at me, face flushed red. "I knew it! You're stealing. Whatever's in there, it's ours." David's gaze flicked from me to the open safe, his face pale. He looked more lost than angry, like a kid caught in a lie. I stood, fists clenched, dust coating my jeans. "This isn't yours," I said quietly. "Dad left this for me." Angela laughed, harsh and bitter. "Don't be ridiculous. You. He never trusted you. He gave us the house. That proves everything." I pulled the folded letter from my pocket. Dad's shaky words still etched across the page. "He gave you the house to shut you up," I said, voice shaking but strong. "But he gave me the responsibility, the land, the future. He trusted me." The silence that followed was suffocating. Angela's smile cracked for the first time, her eyes darting nervously to David. "Tell him," she demanded. "Tell him this is ours." But David didn't speak. He just stared at the papers in my hand, his jaw working like he wanted to say something but couldn't. For the first time in my life, He looked smaller than me. We stood there, 3 people in a barn full of ghosts, the weight of Dad's secrets pressing down like the hot Texas sun outside. Finally, I stuffed the letter back in my pocket and shut the safe with a clang. "You can fight me all you want," I said, voice steady now. "But Dad made his choice, and I'm not letting you take it away." Angela's face twisted, but David just lowered his head. She grabbed his arm, hissing under her breath, but he didn't move. He didn't back her this time. And in that silence I realized the battle was already won. Hours later I sat on the tailgate of my truck, watching the sunset bleed red across the fields Dad had left me. The papers were locked safely away again, but the weight of them pressed heavy on my chest. It wasn't just money, land, or titles. It was trust. Trust that I'd use it better than he had. Trust that I'd carry the family forward, even if it meant carrying it alone. Truth is, I didn't feel victorious. I felt broken. I'd gained everything I never thought I'd have, but in the process, I'd lost the little family I had left. Angela's words still rang in my ears, sharp and bitter. But so did Dad's. "You were the one I could rely on." As the sky darkened and the cicadas began their nightly chorus, I whispered into the wind, "I'll do right by it, Dad, even if it kills me." Because, in the end, maybe the real inheritance wasn't the land or the money at all. Maybe it was the burden of proving to myself that I was never second best.